Hello and welcome to the next of our lecture recaps. This is a recap of our lecture on the global environment. Don't forget that you can download all of our mind maps for free as a PDF from the website shown, or indeed purchase the full course on which this is based should you wish to do so. So remember, these days we're particularly looking at globalization. So there's global competition. Why might a business decide to compete in the global environment rather than just concentrating on their own particular area? Well, this may increase their return on capital. It may be that the area that they're in is in recession, or indeed that it's a mature market. So they maybe want to move into those areas that they can increase their return on capital. There'll be increased opportunities in growth markets through rising incomes and more spending by consumers. And we've had reduced trade barriers in recent years, which makes this an easier thing to do, not to mention the growth of the internet, which we'll look at when we look at e-business. There are, however, some risks whenever we undertake global competition. For example, cultural variation, particularly when it comes to our marketing strategies. Marketing in one area may not work the same as marketing in another. Differences in our cost structure, well, that will be apparent whenever we move into those other areas. Understanding the competition may well be different in those areas from what we've undertaken before or what we expected. Foreign exchange volatility is a key area that the business needs to understand. And the macroeconomic factors. Is the area we're going into in a recession? Is it in a boom? Is it a boom and bust economy? How does it actually work? There's also quite high political risk if we go into certain areas that maybe the government may seize the assets that we have or something along those lines. There may well also be barriers to entry, such as legal barriers or simply cost barriers. However, the benefits that we can gain from globalization are huge. We can undertake economies of scale. We can motivate the managers we have in the organisation and therefore retain them. We can widen the cultural perspective within our organisation and potentially lower the costs as a whole throughout the organisation. We can also identify new customers and new markets, spread the risk between different areas of the globe, and perhaps get government support for going into those new areas. So those are all reasons that businesses will want to go into this global environment. But how do we decide where we go to? Well, Porter's Diamond seeks to help us on that front. It sets out the competitive advantage of nations. So if we're deciding between different nations where to go, we can use Porter's Diamond to decide what's the best nation for us to set up our new venture in. So this is Porter's Diamond. There are 4 areas around the competitive advantage that nation will have. There are demand conditions, related and supporting industry, factor conditions, and strategy, structure and rivalry. Looking first of all at the factor conditions, these are supply side conditions. Supply side conditions that are advanced factors. So factor conditions are advanced factors, things that set that country apart. Every country, for example, will have people. But does the country particularly have people who are experts in a certain field? For example, German engineering. So factor conditions set that country apart. Demand conditions, well, that relates to the demand at home in that country. Will you be able to sell your product once you've manufactured it there? So high standards are demanded in certain countries, and that may lead to innovation, i.e. you need to meet up with those high standards and therefore innovate. Related and supporting industry, well, this is thinking about the ability of that country to supply you with the raw materials you require to actually produce the products, or will you have to import those raw materials? And strategy, structure and rivalry within that nation is the competitive element. So that will feed into things like the competition authorities and whether they promote rivalry within that location. So we looked at Porter's Diamond in illustration 1. So that was a recap of our lecture on the global environment.